Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. I'm closing out this week on abandonment by talking about how to build resilience around abandonment. How do we build resilience around it? Now, if you've been here a while, you know that, when I talk about resilience, it doesn't mean that the thing doesn't happen, or it doesn't mean that we pretend that it doesn't happen. Resilience is knowing that it has and knowing what to do when we're facing. And the more we know what to do and put those things in place, for example, asking for support, knowing where to access support, knowing what it feels like when it hurts, knowing where it hurts, knowing the coping strategies to apply and applying them as and when we need them. That's how we build resilience. So how do we do that around abandonment? Does it mean that we'll never be abandoned? No, it doesn't. Because unfortunately, the way the world is, there are people that are going to like us and there are people that won't. There are people that will be loving warm spaces and there are people that won't be loving warm spaces. The challenge with abandonment is, as we're dealing with it here, is that it happens so early in our lives. Because it happens so early in our lives, it tells us stories about ourselves. And part of what we do sometimes in our groups and when we do deeper workshops is to help people to understand the story and to change the narrative. Now, we can't change the abandonment story because it happened. We can't change the past, but we can begin to address the things that we tell ourselves about the things that have happened, the things that we tell ourselves about our past, right? We can begin to address the things you tell yourself, that your father wasn't around, that he left, that your mother left, that the breakup between your parents, the neighborhood kids who abandoned you or rejected you, what it felt like at school. Because when those things happen, we tell ourselves, and oftentimes the things that we tell ourselves, well, it must be me then. It must be because of me. It must be because of who I am. And therefore, if I change who I am and if I become this person, I'll be more likable. People will see me more, and all these things that we tell ourselves that isn't true. But how do we build resilience around that? Knowing that it might happen again. But I want you to know the first thing, if nothing else, that you don't remember from today is that it's not about you. It's not your fault. It's not about you. It's not going to be about you. People make choices. The people in your life when you were younger made a choice. The people in later life, if it's the marriage that has ended, people make choices. It's not always easy for us to sit with the consequences of those, though, or what they feel like to us. That's not easy, and we're not minimizing it. But I want you to know that it's not about you. Okay. So how do we build resilience around that, knowing that it's going to happen? So some of the things that we do, some of the impact of abandonment is fear. Because you feel like it's going to happen again. This thing is going to recreate itself in my life again. People never stay. People always leave. So sometimes you might find yourself sabotaging relationships because then you leave first just in case they leave. So we want to build something different. We want to change the narrative around that, the story around that. People don't always leave. If you look in your life, you might see some key people who stayed. And it might make you look at the people who are there in a different way. But sometimes we hanker off after the ones who have left because, again, of what is written. So begin to change the narrative, begin to change the things you tell yourself when you meet somebody new and you're wondering, will they stay? Why will they stay? Because those embedded messages of not good enough might tell you that you're not, and that's why they're going to leave. But people will stay. You have a lot to offer. Your opinion is valid and valuable. People need you. People will stay. And you don't have to become a people pleaser for them to stay. They will stay because they will learn how to get to know you and like what you bring, your value, okay? What you bring to the table. Sometimes abandonment influences low self-esteem because, again, if we were good enough, and this can be fed due to the things you tell yourself. So a lot of the things that I'm going to tell you is around how to understand your thoughts, how to shine a light on them and tell yourself the truth. So the truth is, once again, it's not because you weren't something why anybody did anything. It's a choice that people made that has impacted you. Abandonment also, you might struggle, and a way to build resilience is through forgiveness. Now, this is a journey, again, not a destination. And I talked about the principle and practice of forgiveness a couple of days ago. And I want you to know that once again, when you do that and you learn how to practice forgiveness, then it helps you to build resilience. If you, one of the things that it might do is make you will lonely, isolate yourself. So you want to know now, be intentional about who you allow in your life, understand how to create understand safe people, and to put some boundaries in place so that people who come in your life, the relationships can be healthy. One of the things that will help that is you understanding your needs and being able to communicate them clearly without worrying that if you communicate your needs, it might influence conflict. It won't. Okay. Your needs are valuable, they're valid, they need to be met. It's not sustainable for you to live without your needs not being met. So, knowing what they are and how to communicate them clearly will be helpful. Releasing shame continually will help you to not abandon yourself or to build resilience around abandonment. So, knowing what shame feels like for you will be helpful too. So, you can know how to call it out and have safe spaces to express it in. I did that today. Somebody offered me something. It's a very valuable thing that they're offering me. And as I listened to the message, I felt shame rise. And I'm like, I know what that is. I know what that is. I'm not going to not accept something that I know is going to be good for me because of it. So I expressed it and I said, thank you for this. I'm going to think about it. But as I listened to you, I felt shame rise. But that's my old money wounds and shame and all of that. Abandonment, know what shame feels like for you in this context, because then you'll know when it comes. Because if you don't know when it comes, it will trip you up and it will cause you to sabotage relationships. It will cause you to put stumbling blocks in your way. And as we're building resilience around it, we want to know what it feels like. What does shame feels like for you, and where do you feel it? I said I felt it rising. It was like a heat rising, and I feel it stirring in my tummy. I'm like, no, we're going to release shame. We're not going to have any shame, right? Also, it might influence, highs and lows, feelings, sadness and anger. It might influence those. So understanding when you're on this roller coaster and learn how to ride the wave that it brings, the wave of emotions that it brings will be helpful. And the final one I want to look at as you're building resilience around abandonment is to know that you go into fawn in response and you're doing people pleasing and codependency and all of these things. You need people and you need them to need you, and you're twisting yourself and putting yourself in pleasing ways because you feel that that might help other people to be okay, and you're denying yourself your needs and you're not meeting them and you're not expressing them. But sometimes you're bitter, sometimes you're sad, you're never happy in all of these ways. Understanding and knowing that and being able to make decisions that are going to be right for you and good for you, that is going to be boundary to you and honoring to you, those things really help you. So these are some of the ways it's not an exhaustive list. There are many other ways that you can build resilience around abandonment, but this really helps to strengthen you at your core, helps to strengthen you so that when people come in your life, now you're standing as a different person because you understand yourself, you understand your responses, and you learn how to over time choose the responses in the moment and make some different choice that boundary you, that keeps you safe and help you to build healthy, safe relationships with others. Thank you for joining me in Stories That Shape Us. Thank you for joining me in this series of Stories That Shape Us around abandonment. I hope you'll join me on the next story. Thank you. Bye.